Teen Chefs with Justin.
Hi.
And me, Mommy. So I'm in a good mood today. Don't know why, just am. A little goofy because I couldn't have coffee this morning. I had to go for blood work. So we're making a lasagna. I learned this recipe when I was in grade 7. So I don't even know, 13, something like me, I don't know. It's grade 7 anyways. And my mom loved it so much that I had to make it a lot. So I actually know the recipe offhand. I don't have to look it up. And I've already prepped all of our ingredients here. And we're going to start at the stove today.
So we've got our stove set at 4, and we already got our oil in. So we're gonna be putting the hamburger in, getting each 1 teaspoon of salt and pepper, and 2 teaspoons of, as you can see, onion and garlic powder.
Are you sure it's 2? It's not 3?
It's 2.
No, I'm pretty sure it's 3.
Okay.
So this is enough lasagna for 2 servings. We're just doubling up everything. Lasagna is kind of filling, so my family actually gets full on it. And we're also going to be making a little bit of garlic toast. Or not garlic toast, garlic bread, sorry. I'll just give you a little show on how to make that. And I think we're in for a tasty supper tonight. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah. Sounds good.
So if our cameraman wants to come over here for a minute while Justin's getting that all into the pan. I'm just mixing up. I have 2 cans of mushrooms. I have tomato paste. So for each recipe of lasagna, it is 1 can. Sorry, camera dude. And 1 can of tomato sauce. So of course I said we were doubling it, so I got 2. And then I'm going to add a little bit of salt and oregano to this. Let me just grab that. I'm not going to measure, but it's about a teaspoon of salt and oregano leaves. It's kind of up to your taste. I find oregano can give me heartburn. A lot of the nightshade type plants do. So I'm going to just sprinkle it on. It's probably about a teaspoon, maybe 2. And if you really like oregano, feel free to add more. I mean, it's your lasagna, you can cook it how you want. And so we're just gonna stir this up, and then we're gonna put this on the stove to simmer while our ground beef is cooking, so that we can add our ground beef in and simmer that while our noodles are cooking. But not to worry, we got lots of action happening because a lasagna takes a lot of different steps. So let me just pop this on the stove, and we'll come back when we are ready to add our ground beef into our sauce.
And then we're going to be putting it in this bowl here so that we can put it on the lasagna.
And I'm making up one of our layers mixtures. Now, this has got cottage cheese. And normally for one recipe you'd use the 500 mils, but I'm going to be using the full liter of cottage cheese. And you also put in a couple of eggs. 1, 2, and once again salt. It's not the last time we'll be using salt today. But don't put too much. You don't want your lasagna to be super salty. And I'm also going to, sorry, I got gooey hands here. I'm going to be putting in some Parmesan cheese. And again, it's kind of one of those ingredients. It kind of depends on how cheesy you want it. So I'm just going to add about half of that. And then I'm going to stir it up and kind of see what the consistency is like, how it kind of looks. Because Parmesan cheese is good stuff. I also need to add some oil into this. And the oil is only like a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, something like that. So again, because I've made this so often, I don't even remember the measurements, but I do know what it's supposed to look like. So that's still a little bit drippy. So we're gonna add that in. Hey Justin, do you wanna go grab me the Oh, never mind. I think it's up here. Oh, there it is. So we got my sunflower oil. And so 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons. That looks about right. And we're just gonna stir this up. And we're gonna let it kind of sit, because then that kind of gets the flavor of the Parmesan all throughout your cottage cheese. And it just, I don't know, it just tends to give it a better flavor. So that's gonna be one of our layers. We're gonna leave that out. Justin's working on our cheese. That's gonna be our layer. And we're working on our meat sauce. That's gonna be a layer. And we will, as soon as I've got the sauce, I'll combined meat and the tomato and the mushroom and everything, we're gonna start our noodles. So we'll come back for that. I'm not sure how long it's gonna take. So we'll be back shortly. So here's our tomato sauce. It's still simmering while our ground beef is still cooking. And I think I might drain my ground beef and add my sauce into this pan, because we have a fair amount of ground beef. So it's gonna be very meaty, which I like that. So it's all pretty much cooked, but I like to get it a little bit browner than this, because when your meat has no color, it has no flavor. So that's what Gordon Ramsay says. So we're pretty darn close to being at the right place. So I'm gonna guess maybe another 5 minutes of cooking this ground beef, and then it'll be ready to go. We'll pour our sauce in, and then we'll get our noodles starting to cook. Hey Justin, you having fun?
Not really.
What do you mean not really? Buttering bread, super easy. Hey, did I tell you about a new restaurant downtown? It's called Karma. Do you want to know about the restaurant?
Sure.
Sure, okay. Well, there's no menus. Have you ever been to a restaurant that had no menus?
No.
Well, this one has no menus. You know why?
Why?
You get what you deserve. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so our ground beef is ready. And we're gonna pour the sauce in here, because there's an awful lot of ground beef. Might have to add some more tomato sauce to it, we'll see. So I'm just gonna grab a spatula. And I'm gonna pour this in. And get all that nice, lovely tomato sauce in there. And then I'm gonna have a little taste, because I wanna make sure that the seasoning is right, how I like it. It's always a good idea to taste your food. Just turn this down, because this just has to simmer now. So let's mix this all up. Now, for those of you who get heartburn like I do, you can cut the acid in your tomato sauce by adding a tablespoon of milk to this. I've done that in the past, but honestly, because of the amount of ground beef, I think that we'll be fine with this. And this is looking really lovely and meaty. So Justin's gonna get on the noodles to boil here on the back burner. He's gonna start our water, get it up to a boil, add a little bit of salt and oil. So go ahead, Justin. So our next step is this. You're probably wondering what these 2 little lonely eggs we're doing here. Well, when our noodles come off from their cook, we're gonna, I'm thinking that's a little bit too small of a bowl. So I'm gonna get a bigger bowl. Okay. And what we do is we mix up our noodles with egg. And then when we're baking this, what happens is your noodles stick together. So I'm just gonna give this a short little mixing up with our fork. And then after our noodles have come off the heat, we're gonna strain them, we're gonna give them a little rinse, and we're gonna toss them in here, and then that keeps your noodles sticking together when you put them in the pan. Another thing that we need to do is we need to spray our pans. So we're gonna be making 2 lasagnas, kind of a bigger one and a smaller one. This is generally what I make for a supper. And the reason why we spray our pans is because cheese, of course, is gonna stick, and so does noodles. So we're just gonna give it a quick spray so that it doesn't stick to my lasagna pan. And Justin and I are gonna construct these when we are done draining our noodles. So let's just go over what we have. We have our meat sauce on the stove. We have our cottage cheese and Parmesan cheese, egg, and it's salt and oil in there. We have our mozzarella cheese. This is for our noodles. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start mixing up my garlic butter for our bread. So again, you wanna add a little bit of parsley in there. Have to combat that garlic breath. And I gotta figure out what I did with my garlic. I think I was being way too organized and I put it away. And I'm gonna put some garlic powder in here. And we're gonna mix it up, chop up our loaf, put it back together, and wrap it up in tin foil so that we can pop that in the oven and it'll come out all hot and buttery and really good and garlicky. And so, as you can see, making garlic butter is really not that difficult of a task. So if you've ever been intimidated by the old garlic bread or garlic toast, you can toast your slices and then butter it with this. I actually find it a little bit more expedient because of the amount of people that we feed every meal to wrap the loaf and put it in the oven. There we go. Beautiful. So I'm gonna cut my loaf, I'm gonna butter it, I'm gonna wrap it, and while we're waiting for our water to boil, and we'll be back in a few minutes. So I'm just cutting up our bread. I like to cut it on the diagonal. I don't know, it just makes it a little bit more funky. And we're gonna slap some butter on that, and I'll show you how to wrap this. Should have thought to do a Caesar salad too, but I think that I will be happy with garlic bread and with lasagna. Hopefully everybody else is as well. So here we have our whole loaf. And you just take your garlic butter and you only butter one side. Okay, and then the opposite side. And put on a fair amount because it's gonna melt and it's gonna absorb into your bread. So it's gonna be quite tasty. Don't be shy. You can never have too much butter. That's my motto. So the weather here is warming up. All of our snow is gone. So I guess we had pseudo winter for a few days. Halloween is over. And I don't know how many people went trick-or-treating. I've heard not too many people. We didn't go trick-or-treating because we had to get together with my brother-in-law and his wife and their kids, and we went out to a greenhouse where they have all kinds of Halloween kind of stuff. And then we had eat junk food till you throw up and watch movies night. So it was a lot of fun. We did our costumes. I was a ironic beekeeper because I was a bee being a beekeeper because I have a beekeeping costume. And my sister-in-law was that as well. And the guys, our hubbies, didn't dress up at all. And we had, what did we have here? We had a cat and a queen bee. And we had a dinosaur. What else did we have? Oh, we had a Mario, but he didn't dress up to the greenhouse. And what was Joe? He was a soldier, right?
Or a survivor.
Oh, a survivor from a zombie apocalypse or something crazy like that. So you see I got butter on both. That's because that's my end. No, I'm just kidding. So Justin, you wanna hand me that tin foil? We'll wrap this up for the folks so they can have a look and see how I do it. It's fairly simple. Sorry, sweetie. Kind of making a mess there. So you want a fairly long piece. And we're gonna use 2 pieces actually, because we don't want leaky bread. We don't want our butter to run out in our oven and cause a fire. And also at the same time, you wanna eat your butter. So we're just gonna pop that in there, and we're gonna wrap one end, wrap the other end, get that in there. And then we're gonna take one more piece of foil, and just to make sure that we don't lose all of our butter in the interior of our oven, we're just gonna plop this puppy upside down, and we're just gonna give our extra wrap this way. And we also don't want your bread drying out, and it can dry out very easily in an oven. So there you go. That's our first loaf of garlic bread, and we're gonna do the other one too. So we're almost ready to throw those noodles in. We'll be back when it's ready to go in. Hey Justin, are you still not having fun? I got another joke if you're not having fun.
Sure.
Did you know that you're not allowed to use the word beef stew as a password?
No.
You know why?
Why?
Because it's not stroganoff. Okay, it's funny, laugh. Okay, oakley dokley. So here we have our noodles ready to go in our boiling water. And I always recommend just do one noodle at a time. And kind of like put them in kind of crisscrossy, because they're really difficult to stir. And you don't want them sticking, which is another reason why we put the oil in. So for our big lasagna, I cook 15 noodles because it's 5 noodles per layer, 3 layers. Our smaller one, I cook 12 noodles because 3 layers, I have 4 noodles. And then I also cook an extra noodle for each. Now you might be wondering why. It's because it's really hard to make a lasagna with broken noodles. So we're just gonna keep adding, push that down a little bit. Not to worry if they're sticking up a little bit, because as they start to cook, they will sink down. So really in actuality what I do is I do 16 noodles for our large lasagna and 13 noodles for our smaller lasagna. And I just need my pasta utensil here, pasta fork. Give them a little push down, try and get them under the water. We'll bring that back up to a boil, and then we'll try and give them a stir. So I'm gonna pop the lid back on, and we'll be back in a minute.
So I'm gonna be turning off this oven here and taking these noodles off of here and putting them in the strainer over here.
Are there any stuck to the bottom? Just little bits? That's not bad. Okay, so now that we've strained them, what we want to do is just give them a very quick rinse with cold water. As you can see, some of them broke. That's one of the reasons why I always cook an extra noodle or two. Although we can hide the broken ones in the center of our lasagna. So let's just get all the water out. And then we have our egg. And we're gonna dump that in there. Justin, you wanna grab a set of tongs, please? Sure. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna toss these. So the egg, these are really hot, so you don't wanna stick your fingers in there. Done that before. So there is some that are broken. We only cook them for 7 minutes, but our noodles in our cupboard tend to get kicked around a little bit. So we're gonna start assembling right away here, so our noodles don't have a chance to form one giant noodle. Hey Justin, are you still not having fun? I got another joke if you're not having fun.
Sure.
Did you know that you're not allowed to use the word beef stew as a password?
No.
You know why?
Why?
Because it's not stroganoff. Okay, it's funny, laugh. So we have our sauce, our noodles, our cottage cheese mixture, and our
Cheese.
mozzarella cheese. So we're gonna kind of work in the center We're gonna put stuff in the center. Try and save the broken noodles for the tops. So Justin, you're gonna put 4 noodles on the bottom there.
Okay.
And I am gonna put 5. Just try and grab whole noodles for your bottom, and your top are kind of more important. This bigger pan does take more noodles. If I could keep it from sliding around, that would be handy. Try and save the broken noodles for the middle.
Okay.
Ouch. Yep, I'm a wimp. I'm gonna use my tongs. If you need to use tongs, there they are, Justin.
Okay.
So the layers are fairly simple, and you do them all the same except for the top layer. So what I always do is, because this pan's a little tiny bit bigger, I'm gonna grab one of these little broken pieces here, and I am gonna layer him at the end. I find these noodles that are kind of have the ridges in them, I don't know if maybe you're not supposed to cook them or whatever, I just always do. And I find that they tend to break a lot when you cook them first. So let me just grab my ladle. So now that we have our first layer of noodles, you just grab a scoop or 2, nice healthy dose of your sauce, tomato sauce with the ground beef and the mushrooms. Now, one thing that we don't put in our lasagna is spinach. We have a few spinach haters in our house, so that's why we don't. But you can totally layer in spinach with this, and it's quite tasty. So go ahead and add that layer for you, Justin. And then next we need cottage cheese. So we're just gonna sprinkle a little bit of cottage cheese kind of all throughout. I have to make sure I have enough for Justin's lasagna as well. And cottage cheese, I don't ever put it on my very top layer. I just put the meat and the mozza on my top layer. Because when that mozza melts, it just looks delish. So go ahead and do this. Don't use too much. And next we're gonna put it in a layer of mozza. Not too much, because you want to be able to get 3 layers here, and if you put too much, then your lasagna is going to be pretty high. That's good. And just take your fork and spread that around. Okay, and I'm going to start on my second layer. So I put all the noodles even with this end, put the extra noodle there. For the next layer, I'm going to start with even at this end, and I'm going to try and use up some of these broken noodles because we are in the middle. So nobody's gonna really know, because by the time that they cut it open and they start eating, they're never gonna notice that there's broken noodles in the middle. So I think I'm gonna end up having to use my extra noodle here because, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, I think, I don't know. And then we'll do this at the end. And another broken piece at the end too. Let's see if I can find a good one. Here's one that's broken. So we'll throw that one in there too. And then I'm gonna do another layer of meat sauce. And one good thing about this is if you have extra meat sauce, that's not a bad thing. You can always pop that in the fridge and have that on your spaghetti the next day. Or whatever you want to cook. Any kind of noodle you want to cook. Because it's quite yummy. I'm just going to tuck this little puppy in. It's not really a puppy, just so you know. No animals were harmed during the making of this video. And I'm going to do more cottage cheese. So Justin, whatever cottage cheese is left after I'm done this, you'll use up.
Okay.
Okay, because we don't put cottage cheese on the very top. Okay. All right, there you go. And that looks good. Don't make it too thick, remember, because otherwise, number one, we won't have any sauce for the top. And you used a lot of cheese for your middle, so you're gonna have to skimp a little bit on this layer for yours, because we have to have enough for the top. And this is 2 bricks of mozza, which should have been plenty. This little dude doesn't want to stay down. Okay, so just skimp a little bit on your cheese on this layer because you used, I think, too much.
Okay.
Okay, so we did first layer with the end on this side, second layer with the end on this side. We're gonna do the third layer with the end on this side. Wow, this is just shredded, a lot of these noodles, hey?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll try and do the best we can. Not everything works out perfectly. Okay. So I'm just gonna grab these 400 and little itty bitty pieces. I'm gonna take these better ones out for Justin. Okay, that's good. That's good. And so that he has a topper. So go ahead. Oh, I told you to use all the cottage cheese, hun.
Oh.
So use it all up because we won't need it for anything else. I'm gonna put some of these broken ends in here. So it's not gonna be the prettiest lasagna in the world, but broken noodles don't taste any different than whole noodles. So it's a noodle is a noodle is a noodle. So for our last layer, I don't like to load it up too much. I like to just put a little bit of meat sauce on those noodles so that they don't dry out and turn all crunchy. Okay, I gotta leave enough for Justin there for his lasagna. That should be good. Okay, I'm gonna spread this out. Can I have that fork, sweetie? I'm just gonna spread this out. It's got a little bit of cottage cheese on it. Make sure you get in your corners because they tend to dry out a little bit in the oven. Just kind of spread it out on top. Make it look as nice as you can. Okay, so Justin, what we're gonna do is get those noodles on, and then we're gonna use this, what's left here, as filler for you. So, sorry guys. So let me just spread this out. Try and get in the corners. You don't want those hard, crunchy noodles in the corners. You wanna make sure that you have enough there. This end here might end up being a little crunchy because I used the shredded noodles. So go ahead and you can use the rest of the meat sauce. Oh wait, let's use this up. We'll just kind of sprinkle it all over. Try and make your lasagna next time, Justin, a little bit more even.
Okay.
You see how it's kind of it's like a sunken ship in there somewhere. Let's just throw these noodles on here. A noodle is a noodle is a noodle. And we don't want to waste, especially with people being broke these days. Okay, so go ahead and finish it off with the rest of the meat sauce. You can put the rest of it on. And I'm gonna put a layer of cheese on this. Hopefully there's enough cheese for the top of Justin's. So I usually would put more cheese than this on the top because I just love it when the mozzarella cheese gets all bubbly and it gets those little brown spots in it as it's cooking. I love that when it's nice and toasted cheese like that. And that's our lasagna. So what we're gonna do now is we are going to pop these in the oven for about 40, 45 minutes. And in the cooking process, when there's about 15 minutes left, we're gonna pop our bread in as well so that our bread can get all nice and hot and yummy and buttery and garlicky. Okay, so we'll be back in a few minutes. Or actually, here, I'll just throw mine in so you can see. Our oven is set to 350 degrees. We're just gonna pop it in there on our top shelf. We don't want our noodles to burn on the bottom, although this is wet enough it probably won't. But we want to make sure. Okay, Justin, go ahead and pop yours in if it's ready. Did you use up all the cheese?
Yeah.
Oh, and you didn't use up all the meat sauce. Remember what I said, right? We don't want to waste. Okay. One thing with yours, Justin. Yes, I know my oven is open. Spread out your sauce so that your corners are covered a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost a noodle there. And so you don't have a giant mess in your oven, try and get it so you don't have stuff hanging over the edges of your pan. So with us trying to sell our house, I'm very conscious about a dirty oven. So, and we're gonna pop this one in as well. And about a half hour into the process, we're gonna throw in our bread. And then we'll be ready to go. We'll be ready to taste. Turn on my light so I can keep an eyeball on it. And we'll be back. So, our lasagna is done. Time to take it out. We had a little bit of spillage in the oven, so now I'm gonna have to change the foil. And I'm gonna leave my lasagna sit for 10 minutes. Now you might be wondering why. It's because it just sets and you don't get a sloppy mess. It actually cuts much better. So I'm not gonna cut it, not gonna touch it, just leaving it for 10 minutes. Sorry guys, I got a frog in my throat. I was eating pumpkin seeds. Love those pumpkin seeds, but the salt kind of makes me hoarse a little bit. So we're gonna let this set for 10 minutes. It'll firm up, it'll stop bubbling, and then we're gonna cut and taste. And our bread is staying in the oven for that 10 minutes, and we'll take everything out, and then we're gonna eat.
Yeah.
Hey Justin, are you still not having fun? I have another joke for you.
Right.
I invented a new word.
What?
Plagiarism. Hello, we're back, and I've already made our centerline cut down the lasagna here. Justin, would you like to take out the bread out of the oven? There's you can actually have the mitts because this has been sitting out for 10 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it's not going to burn me. So I made a centerline cut. I always try and do this as even as I can. It doesn't always work out that well. And my mom, when she cuts her baking squares and stuff like that, man, I've never seen it cut so perfectly in my life. I'm not quite that good at that. But, and our bread is coming out as well. So we got 8 pieces out of this one. And you know, lasagna is actually very tasty the next day. It's kind of one of those things that does well as a leftover. So let me just take out a piece here, and then we'll get our tasters in here. Look at that, looks lovely. This is the one that Justin did.
Yay.
And we'll grab a little piece of garlic bread here. Hopefully it cooked long enough so the butter's all melted. Yeah, it looks great. So we're gonna put a little piece of toast here. I'm gonna cut this up so everybody can have a little piece of bread. Might have to cut another piece because I don't think this is gonna be enough bread for everybody to taste. Taste. Sorry, can't help breaking into song when we have delicious lasagna. Okay. So this will be my plate, since everybody's gonna be having a little taster time on this sucker. Oh, we are low on forks. So, not to seem really barbaric or anything, but we're low on knives and forks. So I'm gonna use my big honking knife to cut this, which you don't really need. As you can see, it's kind of going through really good. Okay. So cut some pieces. Now this is gonna be really hot, guys. So when you go to taste, please, 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 please blow on it, because I don't want any burnt mouths. Okay, so let's bring out forks for everybody. Let's see how many we got. I don't know, maybe we don't have enough.
We do have
Some
them
in here. Some in the dishwasher. James, Janetty Betty, and yes, we will need some more forks. So just let me grab a fork here, guys, for little Miss Jaylena Bean.
And with another bean, I think. Nope, it's not. It's not a bean.
Excuse me, I've got a bit of a dry cough. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little stab here,
Stab.
and I'm gonna try this. So why don't you guys go ahead, take a stab, take a little piece of bread. Get some meat, get some cheese, get the whole thing. I'll move out of the way. Go ahead, take a stab. Make sure you blow on it, it's hot. We'll see how it tastes.
The lasagna tastes good.
Mm-hmm. Did you try the bread?
Yeah.
So, does it pass inspection?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it tastes good, you should smile. Smile. Smile.
I'm sure.
Be super happy about the lasagna. So that wraps up another episode of Aspiring Teen Chef. We're gonna actually go and eat this really good lasagna. It turned out really well. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you like what we're doing. Hit the little bell if you want to see more content, and like, so it helps the YouTube gods to be nice to me. So have a good night, and we'll see you in a week. Everybody ready?
Bye.